Chicago Bears are looking for a new stadium to call home. Can they score big with Indiana lawmakers before Illinois even gets off the sidelines? Tonight, Lawrence Holmes gets to the point.
From Chicago's very own, with WGN political editor Tamon Bradley, this is The Point.
Good evening. We're just a few days away from Super Bowl Sunday. The Bears didn't make it to the big game, but team executives are already looking to the future. And they'll need help from local lawmakers before breaking ground on a new stadium. For the Bears, staying in city limits no longer appears to be an option. Team president Kevin Warren says the decision will come down to either the suburbs or Northwest Indiana. One big question: who pays, the team or the taxpayers? Here's what's on the table. Indiana state senators passed a bill to create the Northwest Indiana Stadium Authority. That group would find a piece of land, build a stadium, and finance it. The Bears would not own the stadium. They'd have to lease it for at least 35 years, but the team gets to keep the operating revenue and could eventually buy the stadium for just $1, as long as any remaining debt is already paid off. The bill already has the backing of Governor Mike Braun, but it has to pass the Indiana House before lawmakers head home in about 3 weeks. Here's the bill's sponsor and Speaker of the House earlier today.
I'm going to spend the next 2 days up in Lake County and Porter County having conversations with local elected officials. We do everything we can. I think it's an incredible economic opportunity for Northwest Indiana and for the state of Indiana, and hopefully we'll be moving something forward soon.
In Illinois, it's a little more complicated. The Bears already spent more than $197 million for land in Arlington Heights. The team says they're ready to shell out another $2 billion to build a dome stadium that they would own. Governor Pritzker has said the state will pay for infrastructure costs, but the Bears want to lock in a lower property tax rate before they commit. Democrats in charge of the State House could be softening to the idea. The next question is, can they get it done quickly to stop the team from heading across state lines? A key player at the Illinois State House, State Rep Cam Buckner. He's a former Fighting Illini football player. He helped the Chicago Cubs negotiate a deal to renovate Wrigley Field. Soldier Field is in his district, and Buckner says he talks to Kevin Warren often.
We're very clear about what they're looking for. They're very clear at this point about what the representatives of the people want to happen. We're being smart, we're being prudent, we're being balanced. We're also moving with speed to make sure that we can figure out how to get this done. And so I remain confident.
Joining me now is Lawrence Holmes, host of The Score, which you can now catch on 670 AM and 104.3 FM. You're on the FM dial.
Yes. Now people can hear us downtown or in parking garages all over the city. So we are thankful to be on 104.3. But if you're out in the suburbs, you can still catch us on 670 AM.
That is a great plug. I'm such a big fan. It's so exciting to have you here. We have so much in common. Love of the White Sox, Star Trek. I love what you do with your show because you'll randomly have a conversation about whether or not Solange's catalog is better than Beyonce's. True story. Well,
it's true. The only thing that we don't have in common is Southside Baseball versus Jackie Robinson West.
That's true.
We all know what's the better baseball organization.
All right, let's talk about the Bears Stadium. How much did Caleb Williams' Superman antics and the great season sort of help their push for a new stadium?
Well, the Bears for sure hope that that's what happened. They hope that people were so excited. I mean, even if you go back to Kevin Warren's statement that he put out to the fans, like that was a part of it. The idea of how much excitement there was on the lakefront and Caleb Williams and the fans being a huge part of it. I don't know if that's going to sway lawmakers. And we know that there have been a couple of lawmakers who have said what happens on the field isn't exactly what they're worried about. They're worried about making the best deal for Illinois taxpayers. So I understand. And Cam Buckner is a former football player. And I know that he has been one of the people at the forefront saying, we want the team to do well. Everyone wants them to do well, but that doesn't mean that there's a blank check for them to spend the state's money.
I wanted to talk a little bit about what you might be hearing, because privately, what I'm hearing from sources is that Arlington Heights looks pretty good, particularly if the legislature can figure out some help with the property tax bill and also the infrastructure. Does that square with what you're hearing?
Yes, that things look better. I think that the Bears have done a very effective job of using the pressure and leverage of what Indiana might give them to help in this regard. But also, I talked to people down in Springfield that said that they were a lot closer than the Bears led the public to believe in the first place. And there were some logistical things that just weren't done properly that now, with the benefit of time and experience, the Bears have a better hold on what it is they're asking for.
Indiana may be real, it may not be. Do you think it really sped things up? But it sounds like privately, this thing might have been closer than the Bears led us to believe.
It was closer, but I will say, and I still believe that it's not 0% that the Bears end up in Indiana. I think that Indiana gives them something that they have been waiting for, what all NFL owners are waiting for. They want to have their own campus. They want to have control. They want to get the sweetheart deal that Kansas gave the Chiefs to move over the state line. They want all those things. And if Indiana is going to give them the better deal, I don't know that we should even begrudge George and Kevin if they want to take that deal. If they're getting the land development and they're getting someone to pay for their building, which is something that the Illinois legislation is saying that's not what we're going to do. We will help you out on infrastructure, we'll help you out on taxes, but we're not going to build your building. Indiana might offer them a sweetheart deal. And if that's the case, I'm not going to be mad at them for taking it.
There is money still owed on that Soldier Field renovation from 2 decades ago. I mean, Chicago might lose big in this thing.
Yeah, that's been part of the problem, and it's not necessarily even the money that the Bears owe on the stadium. These deals that have happened, and this is part of the problem when it comes to public money for private enterprise, that people were thinking to get the renovations over at Soldier Field, that this was going to solve a lot of problems. And here we are 20 some odd years later, and it's still not a world-class facility. It's not what the Bears want. They've struggled in their relationship with the Park District and other mayors. It hasn't always been cohesive. Now, I do think that Mayor Johnson and Kevin Warren have done a better job of bridging that gap in the relationship. But I think that there had been a fundamental flaw in the planning that the Bears did, not understanding city, county, and state politics. And now I think they have a better understanding of how all of this can work together. So the hope for people who need the Bears to stay in Illinois is that maybe they're closer to doing that. But you have to remember that these teams want the best possible deal that they can. They're not doing this for Illinois. Like, that's, I know it's in the fight song and everything, but if they can get a better deal in Montana, they're going to take the better deal and get their building built.
But maybe they didn't realize that the taxpayers have gotten wise to these stadium deals and what's going on. Kevin Warren, certainly the number one goal would be to win the Super Bowl. 1A is getting the stadium, right?
Well, the idea was that he was coming in as a rainmaker from the successful television bid that he put together for the Big Ten Network and running that conference, that he would come in and it would make things easier. Now, to his credit, I think that he has streamlined a lot of the processes that the Bears have had on the football side. And that ends up with them hiring Ben Johnson. I thought that Kevin Warren was instrumental in changing the way that the Bears went about their hiring process. But he was really brought in here to get this stadium deal done. And when he said, hey, we're going to get shovels in the ground in 2025, and it doesn't happen, I imagine that there are some questions about how it is. But I also think that he was put in a terrible spot when he got the job because they had already bought the plot of land in Arlington Heights. And because of that, that takes away some of the leverage that you would have had if the Bears were just looking for a site. But now I think it's probably closer to happening than not.
I wanted to, 2 predictions.
Okay.
Before you go. First of all, will this get done this month? There's speculation. Even some of your colleagues on the radio are saying, we'll know by the end of the month what's happening.
Yeah, there's a couple of different events that are going to happen over the next few days. I've been told that we should know something. We should know a direction by the end of the month. Obviously, there's still a lot of work that needs to get done. But yeah, I do think that we'll probably have a direction. What's the other prediction? Are we talking about 2020, 2026 Bears football? Is that what we're doing?
Well, before that, there's a game on Sunday.
Oh, you mean the Super Bowl? Oh, okay. I think a lot of Bears fans are going to be rooting for the Patriots, strangely enough, because Velus Jones was out here talking junk about the Bears. So I think this is going to be a great game. I love this. Two defensive coaches going at it. I think Mike McDonald is actually a lot like Ben Johnson, just on the defensive side of the football. Drake Mays had a great year for the Patriots. But I'm going to go with the Sam Darnold redemption story and pick the Seahawks.
My man. All right. Lawrence Holmes from The Score. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. We're back in 60 seconds.